What's up, church family? I'm Sando. I'm the campus pastor over at our Hayward campus, and I'm excited to walk with you all, kind of breaking down Pastor Steve Ingold's message this past weekend regarding wealth in this term called affluenza. Or in other words, and I know some of you might still be thrown off by that. I am a little bit too, but essentially talking about the negative effects of wealth on a society and individuals. And it's easy to kind of take a look back at Pastor Steve's message this past weekend and go, well, I'm not rich, so this doesn't really apply to me when we talk about a better way to be rich. I'm not rich anyways, so I'm just gonna kind of write that off as a nice theoretical thing that was put in place to help someone else, and I'll tuck it away for a time if I ever need it. But we learned from Steve's message that we all fall, as Americans, we all fall into the category of being rich. And compared to the worldwide wealth, we're in the top 0.17%. And so as I've been kind of reflecting on this, I had an interesting experience that I just wanted to share with you guys recently. A student who's been a big part of our Hayward campus these past several years, who kind of has come from some really difficult circumstances. We've been doing an in-person, socially distanced, like intentional discipleship group with some of the young men over the last several weeks at the Hayward campus. And we were walking through a portion of Mark, and this student chose to speak up about a verse that had just flashed on his screen earlier that week that really hit him in a certain type of way. And I just wanted to share that with you guys. It was in Luke chapter 6. And what he started reading is Luke chapter 6 in verse 27. He said, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks you, and if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do back to you." And he's like, you know what, Sando? He's like, that really stuck with me. I've never really thought of it that way. And he kind of zoomed in on the give to everyone who asks you. And that made me think about the lavish generosity that Pastor Steve talked about this weekend, and how in living out such a way, that truly is a better way to be rich. And that caused me, the fascinating thing about it was that this was new to this student. Like, this was new to this, and I keep calling him a student, he's now 20 years old, but this was new to this young man who, although his circumstances might have been completely different from the rich young ruler, was getting an experience the first time of what generosity and truly being rich in the kingdom of God looks like. And so that actually caused me to go back and kind of sit with him and retrace a little bit through earlier in that chapter. And there were a couple things that Jesus said that I felt just really highlighted some of the things we talked about this weekend too. He said in Luke chapter 6, verse 20, he said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God." And then down in verse 24, he says, "But woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort." And that's, I think, one of the biggest byproducts of affluenza. As Steve Ingold, I don't know if he coined it. I know he talked about it in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, so not an original term, but I think that's one of the byproducts, the negative byproducts of this thing called affluenza, is that it creates this idea and this thought that the wealth that we have, we're to use it to create a comfort for ourselves now. We're to use it to incubate our space and our experience and our enjoyment as opposed to learning that better way to be rich and live with a lavish generosity. Because you see, and I'm just going to go back to it again, you see that those thoughts are conflicting with one another. Like, and this is paradoxical about the kingdom of God. It flips things on their head. Even the idea of the American dream. And I know that might be hard to hear, but it flips things on their head. Blessed are those who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. But woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. You see, there's this New Testament principle of stewardship. And that's this idea that everything we have is God's. So really, we're not owners of any of it, but we're stewards of all of it. And what changes when we allow ourselves to step into that New Testament principle of stewardship, it allows us to be more open-handed with what we have. It allows us to learn and truly follow in the steps of Jesus of what it means to be generous in a lavish way. It allows us to step into that. Because we no longer look at the things that we have for our own gain or building our own wealth or material things that we have. We look at it as an opportunity to bring the kingdom of God to those around us. And that's such a special opportunity. And I think, like I said, it's easy to look at the story of the rich young ruler that we talked about over the past several days as we continued in our series, A Better Way. It's easy to separate ourselves from that and say, well, I'm not that rich young man. Jesus didn't ask me to do the same thing. But the crazy thing was while it's easy to look at that story and say, wow, like, I can't believe that Jesus asked him to do that. I look at it from the perspective of, like, what opportunity did the rich young ruler miss? Because in choosing his wealth over giving it away to follow Jesus, what opportunity did he miss where Jesus was going to do something that was absolutely miraculous and super amazing? And that's the opportunity we have today. None of us are advocating for the fact that we should pursue being poor just for the sake of being poor. But when we allow affluenza to take over and to influence us, I wonder what opportunities we miss that Jesus is placing for us and saying, if you're just willing to live generosity, if you're willing to learn how to be rich in my kingdom, I want to show you so many things with that. If you open yourself up to being rich in my kingdom, you'll see how much more there is available to you. And so as we break this down in groups this week, I really want you to do your best to not separate yourself from the rich young ruler and not to step away from this passage in Luke chapter 6 that we read, where once again, blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom of God, but woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. I don't want us to detach ourselves from those things. I want us to place ourselves in this story. I want this to become personal. Because if it doesn't, we're just going to look around at other people who, as Pastor Steve Ingold said, what do most people think qualifies a rich person? It's someone who makes twice as much as them. So we can fall into that same mindset too. We'll go, oh, this doesn't apply to me. This doesn't, I don't meet the qualifications for what's talked about in this story. But I want us to really be intentional in our conversations this week when we talk about affluenza as it affects our own life and what a better way to be rich is in the kingdom of God, I want us to look at that personally. And I want us as a group and in your groups to be prayerful about this. To take a look at the way you use the things that God's given you, the way you spend the money that God's given you, the way that you use your time. Because I think what we'll see is not a burdensome call to release everything that we have, but I think what we'll see if we truly do this is we'll see an opportunity to step into this kingdom of God living when it comes to generosity that he so deeply desires for us to experience because he knows that it's so much better. We have that common adage around the holidays that truly it is better to give than receive. But when it comes to real time, a lot of the time, and especially when we step away from the holidays, we might like that as a nice adage, but we don't like that in actuality. I think we'll like it far more than we thought we will if we allow ourselves to live out this kingdom principle of stewardship and a better way to be rich. So the things I want you to focus on in group is how does this apply to me? What areas of my life maybe am I shielding God from because I want to control it and I don't want him to be able to transform it? I want us to think about that. I want us to be prayerful with one another, to challenge each other in the right type of way. Because as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another, or so one woman sharpens another. I want us to think about that in groups and build each other up because we are a family. And we are a community that, especially in this time more than ever before, needs to learn a better way to be rich so that we can be lavishly generous with the world around us that desperately needs to know Jesus. So I hope you guys have a great time in groups. I'm sure there'll be some exciting discussion and breakthrough. Know that I'm praying for you, we're praying for you, and trust me, we're looking at these same areas for ourselves too, because whenever we think we've reached the pinnacle or the zenith point of following Jesus, that's just a misnomer. We can always learn and grow more. So we're learning and growing and learning this right along with you. So I love you guys. Have a great group this week, and see you soon.